Where you see people who are psychotic.
And shit happens.
My back hurts.
When it starts.
It hurts a lot. It hurts a lot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to...
Buckle up, baby.
There he is. There
22.
he is. Episode 22. Back after a brief hiatus of a day and a half. And we have some news to report. I became a godfather last week.
Congratulations on me.
Because Michael had a baby.
I did.
Tell the folks.
Well, my wife had it.
Right. You helped make it.
I helped make it.
One night.
And yeah, I don't even know where to start. Should I go through the whole story?
I'll leave it to you.
For the folks.
You know, we kibitz here, but if you want to go personal, go ahead.
I can go personal. I mean, it was a little too raw last week, so I didn't think I could. It doesn't feel quite as raw anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a perfectly healthy, beautiful baby boy. The labor was great. And then I had that sneaking feeling of like too good to be true type of thing.
You always have that feeling.
I do, and I try to fight it, and so, but it was great. There was nothing really. I was sending texts, Mazel Tov, congratulations. The bris will be, on so and so day, and then a doctor came in, and I don't think I walked you through all the details.
Share it with me.
Maybe I did. A doctor came in just for the basic, heart, feet, 5 toes things.
I'm lactating just listening to you right
and
now.
he's like there's one thing I should tell you. There's his toes are overlapped. He's like, that's just what it's gonna be like. He's like, it shouldn't matter. I know
This is all true.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
okay.
like, there are plenty of good athletes. And then I said, I have the same thing. Is it genetic? And he said, yeah, that's probably why. But I don't have that, and I don't know why I said that. That was a lie.
That's amazing.
It was a weird lie to say.
Well, that is.
I have a bent toe. It's one of my toes are like that.
I think you just meant to say, "Oh, okay," but that came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was very tired. The doctor kind of woke us up, and then he went. He was listening to his heart. He went, also I heard something like a heart thing. I might just order a test just because to see what that's about. And we're like great. And then I went. And his name was Jawets. So I went. Oh, thank you, Dr. Jawets, because he was like a little bit dark skinned. He went, no, Javits, just Javits. I was like,
just so freaking awkward.
And it's been making me laugh so hard because I imagine being a guy like if he spelled it Javits to be like, oh, Dr. Jawets.
It's Javits,
just like it's spelled, Javits. And
were you trying to impress him?
I guess it was. I felt like I was like sending an olive branch. I was like, I'm gonna pronounce your name properly. And he went, no, just Javits.
No. It sounds like a scene right out of like those Seth Rogen movies or something where it's just discomfort, uncomfortable humor.
It was uncomfortable, and then we took calls. I started making a flyer for the bris.
Yeah.
And, we were like...
Circumcision for the layperson.
Circumcision, yeah. We were like, this email had gone out to Sarah's friend. Was nice enough to set up what's called a meal train where people sign up to send you like takeout basically for the next few weeks or days just to help out.
Lots of lasagna.
Yeah. Lots, yeah. And...
it's all takeout by the second or third kid. Everyone's ordering you out.
Oh, yeah. No. This was... I don't think we got one or two.
I don't know why that came out Trumpian. For some reason I pictured Trump having a newborn. Lots of lasagna, folks. We got a lot of lasagna. Beautiful. Layers of cheese, fantastic.
I love that impression. That's a good impression.
Okay, keep going.
So her friend was nice enough to. She must have used like a list we sent her for like the wedding or something. It was like everyone my wife and I had ever met in our entire lives. Like I had camp friends I haven't spoken to in 5 or 6 years texting me being like, oh, hey man, Mazel Tov, I heard the good news.
I know I interrupt you all the time, but on that point, 2 things that wives, for whatever reason, are so committed to. Meal trains and thank you cards.
Yeah.
And it's 2 things that husbands would never do.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, I should have made you something. That's what we would have said.
Yeah.
Or do you want anything?
Yeah.
Husbands will like ask. Wives will sign up.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
what
I
can
see my
do?
wife like with thank you. I have to write a thank you
Yeah.
for a birthday present for the kid
Yeah.
and sign it from the kid.
Yeah, I have someone who I work with, and we are partners. So when I make money, he makes money. When he makes money, I make money. And he wrote me a check as a thank you, which I think is very funny because I'm like, you could just give me part of your money. Like, I don't know. Now I'm gonna write him a thank you. It was very thoughtful.
You instead of a thank you card, you should write him a check.
I should just write him a check,
and
back.
it'll go forever. We just keep reimbursing each other out of expressions of gratitude. Okay, so
we
things
kept
are
going,
rolling.
and then like I didn't think anything of it, but like in retrospect, it escalated. They took the baby out for a test. They brought him back, and they're like, yeah, look, don't worry about it. Then they're like, we actually want to do one more, and they brought him back. They're like, no, nothing to worry about. And then like a nurse came in, and they're like, have you spoken to Dr. So and so yet? And we're like, no. They're like, okay, I just
you
want
pushed film on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, they're like, oh, we just want to I just want to make sure you talk to them before I say anything. We're like, all right, cool, whatever.
At what point do you start eyebrow raising? Is this the whole time, or you're too much in a daze?
It was 100% in a daze until a nurse brought in a phone, and she's like, there's a doctor who wants to talk to you. And the doctor's like, I would do this in person, but I'm not in the hospital right now. Like, in a few hours, we're gonna transfer your son to the NICU, the intensive care unit for newborns at Columbia.
Okay.
And we're both like,
and pause. He said nothing else after that, or did he say
no? I mean, they explained it very nicely, and they assured us like very much like it wasn't
an emergency.
Like life wasn't in danger. Yeah. But
was there a lull from before they said life was in danger to just like talking? That's like the most terrifying sliver of time. It never, or it was all bundled together.
Yeah, it was never. I guess they're very good at what they do. It was never like terrifying. It never was terrifying. But it was no, yes, it was never terrifying. Really,
it was a moment of
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
exactly.
now your game face is on.
Yeah. And like I was just thinking like they're like you can go in the ambulance with him if you want, or you can just travel behind in a car. And like my mind was like they're like, do you have any questions? And I was like, well, if I go in the ambulance, like how do I get back to the hospital? Like do I like and I was like, what's the parking situation there? Yeah. Like I was like very like I went into full crisis mode of like there's no time to feel anything, like just like get through the next hour. And then they're like, they're gonna be coming in soon to transfer him down to the NICU, and then you got like here, and then from here he'll go to Manhattan, to the city, where they're like,
it's a special
where they do this procedure. And I was like I didn't know they do that. Like I don't know, I have no idea how hospitals work.
In other words, they have to transfer to specific areas affiliated with the hospital that he was born in that do these. So they feed babies with this issue.
Exactly. So there's a floor in Columbia Presbyterian that is the best in the world for this one thing that he needs. Yeah. I don't know what we would if we were in Michigan or something or wherever. They'd probably tell us like, oh yeah, they'd probably say like, oh yeah, this hospital that's gonna do it is fine. Don't worry about it. But it wouldn't have been like the best in the world, which is like, I mean, I'm like, I was like grateful we're here in New York. And then I was thinking like, thought a lot about like, if you just go by the numbers, there's probably someone in Ukraine right now who needs this and just isn't gonna get it. So basically, it was a problem where like, if Dr. Javits wasn't quite as on his game, we would have taken it home, and then in a few days it would have been really, really scary.
Right.
But because he caught it, there's like a hack that the infant body has to deal with it. But that hack stops working after, like, slowly.
You mean to work with the heart that he had at the moment?
Yeah. So basically, the blood wasn't flowing out of the heart properly, but into the lungs. But when you're in the womb, you don't need oxygen. So the heart works in a certain way where blood's just like going all over the place. So not everything needs to work perfectly because like, so it works like that for a day or two after you're born, and then that slowly tightens up, and then it works like properly. So it would have just slowly gotten like worse and worse and worse, and like then it would have been like really scary.
Emergency.
and an emergency, like really bad.
Mm.
But this was just like, scary for us, but for them, it's like we know exactly what to do and like
Yeah.
just go through the steps. So then we went down to the, and then the scary stuff starts happening where like
The visuals.
yeah, he's like in a chamber like
Mm.
with IVs and like it's like all you can do is like touch his hand and then like scarier like the EMTs come and they like take him in this chamber in an ambulance like and he's like alone and it's like I trust that you guys are gonna give us back the
It's not
baby.
Hatzalah guys, at least.
Yeah, no, not Hatzalah guys.
Respect to Hatzalah, of course.
They
They
were-
do wonderful work.
They were very nice. Well,
This one's yours, right? Okay, one second.
Hatzalah's lawless. They don't.
Vigilante.
No, did I tell you that story? There was a friend of mine who was having like a dissociative episode. You know about this?
No.
I think I should say her name.
Can we wrap one up and get to this? Can we pin this?
Yeah, we can pin
Because this sounds fascinating,
We can pin this.
but we'll be lost.
Yeah.
So baby's put in the ambulance.
Baby's put in
taken.
the ambulance and like
all standard procedure.
all standard procedure, but it's
but
it's like
come on.
quite scary.
How's Mama handling this? This is
She's handling it better
Yeah.
than other people might.
Than
like,
you could imagine. Than one
yeah,
could
she didn't like
imagine.
break down, but it's
Yeah.
it's very difficult also because
What about nursing? What do they do for that? So that they just put the
and so immediately all your feeding plans
Yeah.
get messed up because they give him bottles of like
Yeah,
formula.
uh-huh.
Like oh no he was on an IV, so he
Yeah,
didn't really have to eat. But
Ah.
it's like immediately, yeah, it's like all that stuff, and like also your brain is going crazy because it creates hormones that naturally babies are very annoying. So like you just want to like destroy them, but it creates hormones to like want to be with the baby and want to take care of it. But then the baby's taken away from you, so you can't do that. So it really messes with your brain chemistry.
What did you just say? Naturally, babies are annoying, and you want to
No, like,
destroy them.
I mean, like, imagine you were like a gorilla in the jungle, and like your baby's crying. Like, you should be like, like maybe. like-
I don't.
or
I
like-
think cries from a newborn. I don't think we would make it if that's what it stimulated.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it stimulates something else. Like it stimulates
Nurturing,
nurturing, right. But if you can't nurture it, it's difficult.
right?
Because you're
because it doesn't stimulate the aggression; it stimulates the nurture.
right.
impulse.
Well, it's not just a cry. I think your brain is naturally releasing that instinct at that time.
Fun fact: do you know why the shushing is so effective on babies?
Because of the
It's an evolutionary response because it's supposed to simulate the sound of the womb.
right.
And that's the reason. This is what I read.
Mm-hmm.
And by read, I mean heard. And by heard, I mean I don't know. But I did read when I was like learning about the techniques of shushing the crying babies, like these like 5 S's techniques where you shush
Yeah.
in the ear really loud. Shh, really, really loud. And it like triggers a calming response in babies,
Yeah.
which like for evolutionary reasons, back in the caveman days, you had to shut the baby up and they needed something that worked right away. So like we learned how to, if there was an animal or a predator, baby can't just stop by you telling it to. So you have to shush right in the ear.
Right.
It simulates the womb. And that's why every language, the word for quiet has a shush sound in it.
Very interesting.
Sheket, shush. Like this sh is in every language. Shh.
Mm.
Now you learned something.
Fascinating stuff.
Anyway, so you're going through these. You're going through real life here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then then we went to Colombia and it's like crazy. It's I mean it's then like he had this like beautiful awesome room with like a couch, like I could stay there, so I stayed for like so then I separated from Sarah and she sort of recovered in the hospital and I went with the baby the next morning. So that night we were sort of like, what am I was like I haven't slept in 2 days. I can't really drive.
Right.
What am I gonna do? Just like be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it like helps because like you don't know the baby yet,
Mhm.
and like he also doesn't know what's going on. So like,
You're
that
just on
helps.
pause. You're just
that
on
helps.
pause.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know about pause, but I mean, there's just nothing you can do. So you try to like numb yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the nurses in the NICU are like very special people.
Yes, of course.
They're like very good at. I mean, it's interesting because they're very good. The NICU nurses are very good at understanding that they're extras in your story. Like you don't care about them or their needs or who they are, or their names or anything. Like they know you're walking in and they're just blurry faces.
Right.
And they're very good at at knowing that.
It's
and
staying out of the story.
staying out of the story. And I mean, I was asking nurses like these people are like very, very good at what they do. They went to like a lot of school, and I'm like, can you explain to me like how I park? Like, is the spot out there okay? And they're not like, bro, like I don't deal with parking. They're like, yeah, like I'll help you out. Like I'll get back to you in 5 minutes. I'll let you know. Like they're just like they're like concierges sort of. Like or they play that role if they need to, which is like very gracious of
The
them.
modern Western medicine experience for like giving birth, being there for that, isn't it? It's always fascinating because when you're there, you're like, oh, like this is real life. You know, like you're
Yeah.
dipping into like serious life, like the serious part of life where you're
Yeah.
just like, all jokes aside, like people here are doing some serious work. This
Yeah.
isn't like, and this same person will be at a bar later and I'll have
Right.
no idea
Yeah.
what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
But it's a different level of gravity
Yeah,
that they're dealing with every day, and they treat it in a way, in a healthy way, like the gigs we all have.
Yeah.
But when you're in there, you're like, you're playing a different kind of ball
And they
than us who are just like,
Yeah.
I got this project, I got this thing, I got this.
Yeah.
You're and the level of heightened emotions that they're constantly operating on, not them themselves, but against,
Yeah.
is wild when you're
Yeah.
in this place and you're okay. So you're and you know that they compartmentalize
Yeah.
it. You know that they go to the coffee room and be like, anyway, so how was your?
Yeah.
But it's amazing
Yeah.
that they're able. That skill in and of itself, just to operate like that, is
Yeah.
amazing.
I also don't understand exactly who likes that and who is there and is like, that's what I want to do. Like I want that level of stakes and intensity every day of my working
I'm sure
life.
there's you can imagine the thrill and the fulfillment of it to be a part
It
of
doesn't. I mean the thrill does, but the like blood and all that like does not speak to me whatsoever.
it. Yeah, well, I
Um,
think it's a combination of being like all like, ooh, I like biology and like body. I like that stuff.
Yeah, I hate.
I
that
watch pimple
stuff.
popping
I
videos.
hate
I
that
like
stuff.
back. I watch chiropractic compilation videos. So
Yeah.
it's that curiosity mixed with maybe like a compassionate side
Yeah,
that this nursing staff is
the-
like appeals to them.
the
So-
whole thing, that, and then in light of everything we talk about vaccines and
Mhm.
everything, it gave me a much greater respect for not really science as much
medicine.
as not even so much medicine, but
Medicine.
the people who could be doing other things with their intellect and decide to devote it to this. I'm very glad that they do.
Well, yeah.
Like that's and if this is sort of the side they come down with on vaccines and everything, it gave me a greater respect for
the system.
for the argument of the system's fucked, like pharmaceutical companies and healthcare companies, all that. It's obviously very fucked up, but it's what we have, and like it produces the sorts of procedures that like gets my son in and out of the NICU in like a week, and like he's fine, and like it is a trade-off, and like the people, like these nurses could be working at Google and like making a lot of money, like they're smart and personable enough to do it, but they're doing this, and like I'm very glad that they decided
But didn't
to do
you get
it.
a sense from the whole staff that they were inherently corrupt?
So when
That's the thing. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we kibitz about all this crap all the time. But it was Brian Callen. I was watching that podcast clip where he was like, "Oh, there's talk about people being all skeptical of that." He wasn't really talking about COVID, I don't think. I think this was pre-COVID, because that is a different conversation. The vaccines, as it pertains to COVID, is different than vaccine skepticism
yeah.
generally. You know, that's different, because he's like, you want to be anti-vaccine? Yeah, try going back 100 years
Right.
and seeing what happened when you got a cold. You want to be skeptical of modern medicine and say, oh, it's too much. Go back 100 years. You get sepsis. See what happens when you get a cold, and then a week later you're dead.
Yeah.
That's what it was like when you die at 30, because that's what everybody did. The second you got anything. And and then you go into these scenarios and you're like, okay, system schmistum, big
Right.
pharma nonsense. Like, look what we can do. The proof is in the pudding. The bridges are up.
Yeah.
and the hospital can do, 50 years ago is
Yeah.
doing something that 50 years ago it couldn't do.
Yeah.
So, and people are alive, and Baruch Hashem, thank God, everybody
Yeah.
is,
Yes.
health. So you're just like, I can talk a big game. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
most of it is working. It's that Steven Pinker Enlightenment Now idea.
Right.
We always like to talk as if things are getting so much worse when really they are. In reality, they're getting that much better. We just don't see that.
Right. And I mean, it's specifically with the vaccine, like of course there are issues with it, and like of course of course there's issues with it, but for the most part it works.
But Dr. Veshe
And-
works for Pharma, your guy, right? That's what's his name? Dr.
Jawetz.
Deretz. He works for Pfizer.
He works for Pfizer. Well, essentially he works for Pfizer.
Yeah, I'm curious, as our political discussions go, like all these people, when it came to COVID and all those things, like how does that system, when it came to a novel virus and treatments and procedures, where does it come from? So it's not that the individuals involved in the system have any different motives. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and a lot of the things that they're doing are tried and tested. And there is no political. There's no political motive behind heart procedures. Yeah. But maybe in this scenario where the government was so involved and embedded, things can get messy, and people like that are just as
I'm interested too.
Well intentioned, but things can get.
We had
messy.
a naturopath staying with us for a little while.
A what?
A naturopath. They go to med school and then they do like an extra schooling for
doctors must hate them.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but like they go for like sort of full body treatment where like if your ankle's hurting, their big thing is like on your intake, on your first meeting, they'll talk to you for 2 hours. And they'll learn every single thing about you and start trying to connect the dots a little bit about.
So it's doctors who were also vagabonds once upon a time, and they're thin.
Yeah,
Boy, and man or woman?
A woman, and she was explaining, she was explaining like issues that she had with the vaccine, and but mostly she said like the whole approach. She had never listened to Rogan before, and she pretty much said what McCullough said. Which was really interesting to me, and I was trying to ask her like all these things that you're saying. Where at what point in the chain between patient and CEO of Pfizer, at what point does that thing start where like weirdness starts of like
malfeasance?
Yeah, and she,
as Joe Rogan would call it, fuckery.
Yeah,
there's fuckery going on, man.
She didn't.
Fuckery going on.
She didn't know, but really, what I want to focus on more is like
the virtues of modern medicine.
There's a lot of virtues, and I walked away with like a much greater respect for the people who were involved in it.
Because you're really just a bystander. You're like, okay,
yeah,
is that what we do now? I didn't know that you had all this worked out.
Part of my conspiracy brain went there like, all right, every 10,000 babies, we're just going to tell the parents that this is going on. What do they know? We'll explain to them to do. We'll take the baby away for 3 hours, and then we'll bring him back. We'll say he got the procedure. We'll charge him so. What do they know? But it's like people are like explaining all these.
You're on the phone with this doctor. I don't know. Yeah. So I think I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what Rogan says about this.
You see, all the bullshit that we operate with, that we need to like live and exist, kind of just goes away.
Yeah. I was wondering if they're like, this is what's wrong with his heart, and this is the procedure he needs, and we're trying to get him on schedule. Be like, all right, well, we'll think about it. We'll think about it.
You know what? I'm gonna YouTube a few things first.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's interesting how they diagnose it. And then you have to consent. Ultimately, you have to sign a paper that says I consent to what you're doing here. But there's no like it's interesting how it works where they're just like, we're telling you this is what's up, and we're telling you how to fix it, and you're gonna do it, right? Like it's there's not. I guess mechanics are kind of like that too. But
I mean,
it's just
the malpractice of doing anything otherwise keeps them in line.
Yeah, no.
They couldn't just.
I'm totally joking about that thing, but it's interesting how reliant I was 100% reliant
on his word,
on their word, and then of course you start calling friends and friends of friends who like confirm things for you, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that was just
you're at the mercy
thing.
of the professionalism of the doctor, and like the difference in what. The discrepancy between what he knows and is so vast.
Yeah.
That you're just like,
okay. Like this valve is too narrow, right? Right.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like you have
flow, right?
It's like when you go to the mechanic.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, it's not the same but that's the idea. Like you go and he'll tell you anything. Oh, you got the
Well,
carburetor
the
and it's not life or death with a car, so
Yeah.
who cares? But at the end of the day, you'll just say, okay.
The mechanic's a little different because you're driving your car and you can tell something's a little off. This was just like,
Yeah.
if you like,
If you say so.
yeah, all right,
But at the end of the day, long story long.
yeah. So thankfully, this doctor's name kept coming up, and I recognized it as the last name of a guy I grew up with. Yeah. And so everyone in my family was like pushing me very hard. They're like, you have to call and connect and get the connections, etc. And I was like,
for what? For a different doctor?
To get him on the schedule for this procedure. That was like the big thing. Like
Yeah.
he got bumped the first day, and then the second day it looked like he was going to get bumped, which would have put him over the weekend till Monday. Then the whole thing would have started.
You
again.
want him out. You don't want to risk things and all these other.
And so I was like, I don't think there's a lot of politics being played with like sick babies, infants getting procedures. Like I was like, they either like I don't know like what strings can be pulled, but apparently there were some strings that could be pulled. And so
You're a Jew.
This guy's father really like I haven't spoken to this guy in a long time. I haven't been friends with him, like real friends in a long time. But like I sent him a text. Within 2 minutes his father called me.
Flex.
It was so nice. It was so generous. And he helped out. I mean I don't think they like
No, but look, at the end of the day, it's people who are all making these decisions.
Right.
So people influence people.
Yeah, so thankfully he was there. And I hate doing that stuff, but you know, I had to for this.
Why?
And,
Why deny it to yourself? You know somebody who could possibly help you. You have to.
Yeah, because I think about the family without connections who
Yeah.
can't get their kid on, and they have to be
Right.
for an extra 5 days in the
How much do you
NICU.
really think about them?
I think about it a little bit. I feel a little bit guilty about
Right.
it.
Jew guilt.
Is it Jew guilt? I don't
It's
know.
just the fact that you're part of a community. I say Jew guilt in
Yeah.
the way that the reason you have an upper hand here is the tight knit community you come from that can allow you to access resources and people, human resources.
Yeah.
That's what it's from.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it but you're fortunate to be part of that community, so take advantage of what it has to offer.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think it's much of a choice. You're gonna have to if you have the opportunity. But
I understand.
But yeah, no, it's it's tough, and also like whatever. And so and then they also kind of discharged him like probably maybe earlier than they might have because like he was like I'm gonna check with them. It's fine. So he got to come home on Tuesday.
It seemed real quick. That was good.
Yeah. Relatively.
Just as far as from what I heard, what was going on he's coming home.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was relatively quick. It could have been a lot longer.
It was quick for me, at least.
Yeah.
Processing it. But man, look.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like you don't want to hear anything else from a doctor when your baby's born other than everything's perfect.
Yeah.
But I guess the next best thing is everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So that's all you can hope for. It's like, it will be fine.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
You got a baby boy.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Thank God. But
now you're in it. Now you got 2 kids, Michael.
Yeah.
There's no denying it now. The first one is an accessory. The first one comes with you for the first year anywhere you go. Now you got kids.
Well, we didn't leave that. We hardly left the house because
Right.
of
COVID.
COVID. Yeah. It was
But I mean, now
very
you
different.
have kids.
Yeah. I said my kids today for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
In other words, like that first one is like, oh, look at that. What do we got here? Look at everything. Now it's like, all right, we have kids.
Yeah.
How's the
Good.
oldest handling it?
She's good.
Enjoying the Buckle Up Maternity episode. We are sponsored by
Baby
Effamil.
List.
Effamil.
She's good. She's confused.
Right.
She's like acting out a little bit.
I can't wait till you hate her. That'll be fun.
But mostly good.
Because I was telling you about one of my older kids, and I the frustration. Sometimes you're like, really? You get like
I
frustrated?
got frustrated.
Yeah,
it
she's
wasn't-
bringing out the beast.
It wasn't at her, but I was ready to take her to daycare, and I couldn't find her pacifier, and I was just stressed out because I really needed to get out, and earlier that day I had thrown out like moldy strawberries into the garbage. I was like, wait here in the kitchen. I'm gonna run upstairs and go look for it. I come in and she's already eaten like 6 of them out of the garbage.
Oh man!
And I grabbed her arm and I threw it in the garbage. And I think she noticed because then she went to the door that we leave and she like tapped it. She's like, all right, let's go.
Oh gosh.
I think
she ate
noticed.
6 moldy strawberries.
I don't know.
Guiltiest you'll feel
confirm.
is when you
confirm.
The guiltiest you'll feel is when you lash out because you're stressed about something. Not
Yeah,
that's
what it was.
Which happens. There are nights where I'm like, I have to be somewhere, so I'm a higher strung to get things moving for a bedtime or something. And I know that I'm like, if this was just another different night, I had nothing going on, I'd be so chill right now. That's not cool.
I respected her ability to get the strawberries out of the garbage. Like I like her for that. But,
but they probably give you a visceral.
Like,
you were like, oh,
yeah,
and you don't like that.
Yeah.
Onto the disassociative state. I just want to hear that story.
So I'm going. I'm on the subway and I get a call from my friend's father.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it must be like about to dial. And then I get another call. And I'm basically like, I don't really care what it is. Like, I'll call them when I get off the subway. I don't even care if it's an emergency. And then I was like, oh, whatever. Right. And then her brother called me like twice. Ooh. And I got like a text. So I'm like, fine. So I get off not at my stop, like an early stop, so I can go get service. And they're like,
we need you to find.
No, they're like, so I rent apartments, and they're like, you rented this to our daughter, your friend. We know you.
Just kidding.
We know you rented an apartment to our daughter, and you manage the building. The EMTs are currently outside of her door, and they don't want to kick it in. Because they don't want to kick it in. Is there any way you can go meet the EMTs to unlock the door?
You have the keys.
For them? No, I don't have the keys, but they're like, is there something you can do?
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, actually. So like, I get back on the subway, and I run over there, and by that time I'm there, the door's already kicked in. But there's 2 groups, and she is completely. She has no idea who anyone is. I'm there. Her best friend is there. She doesn't recognize anybody.
Right.
She's like undressed, she's completely out of it, and she's walking back and forth. There's like vomit everywhere. A beautiful sight.
Yeah.
And there's two groups. There's the city ambulance people, like the fire department EMTs, and then there's Hatzalah, the Jewish.
Oh,
Corps.
The Hatzalah connection. I forgot.
Yeah,
where
the
this came
Hatzalah
from.
Corps, and the
her friends called the ambulance.
Her parents, I don't know who called her. I think
was
her parents,
she zombie faced?
She was zombie faced. Yeah, her parents. I think her parents probably called both. Maybe
this is kind of what happened to me. Keep going.
And and I want to hear about that too. And so
no vomit. But.
So the city EMTs are like, they're like, ma'am, if you don't, they're like, we need to bring you to the hospital. If you don't sit in the wheelchair, and come down voluntarily, we're gonna have to like handcuff you. No. They said if you don't do that, we're gonna have to call the police, and they're gonna have to like handcuff you and take you in a police car because like you're not going. So like if you could please sit down and just let us take you to the hospital. They're trying to reason with her there, and she won't do it. And then they leave. The city people leave to go get the cops, and the Hatzalah's like, they look at each other and they grab her, they put her in the wheelchair, they tie her arms up, they like throw a blanket on her,
and she was resisting,
and she's screaming and like everything, and they like carry her. They like 4 people carry her down the steps like against her will into the ambulance and take her to the hospital because they don't like have to comply with the law.
So they look at each other, Coda, they're like, Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom.
And then they pull up to a dumpster and then they just sort of put her in there.
Well, did you find out what occurred? Was she on drugs?
She claims she wasn't on drugs, and
she might have had a psychotic break.
No one believes her.
Looks like she had a psychotic break.
The hospital.
This is a friend of yours?
A friend of ours. You know who it is.
We'll have to talk about this afterwards. Off the air.
Yeah.
Sorry, only on Patreon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, only on Patreon.
We'll release the names of all of these people when we start our Patreon, which we haven't yet. We should talk about that too.
The hospital said it was like a migraine, but no, it was crazy. Her parents like flew in, like they like ended their vacation and like flew in.
It's not funny, but
no, that's what I'm saying. And
she had a migraine.
So I think
Can you imagine coming in having to restrain someone who looks like they've had a psychotic break and vomited everywhere? I think she had a migraine.
It wasn't psychotic. She was more dissociated. She wasn't Manic. She wasn't manic.
No, but was she delusional? She said she didn't recognize anybody.
She wasn't delusional. She was just like it was like
catatonic.
It was like her brain was on 5% battery power.
Was she catatonic? Like
she wasn't catatonic.
Like a vegetable looking?
No. She was just on low battery.
Unresponsive?
No, not unresponsive.
So what's disassociative?
Disassociative is like when you feel like disembodied, like you can't tell if you're in your body or not. You're sort of like you look in the mirror. I felt like this before. It's like terrifying. You look in the mirror and you're like, I know that's my face, but like I can't be sure that that's me. Like
you've had that before, just on a random.
I think just out of like
a random glance,
depression.
Got you? Right? Yeah, that happened.
It was really it was might have been like my lowest of the low. It was like
it was
bad.
In the deepest depths of depression, I wouldn't. I guess that's what
bad.
It is. Where you're just like you're a shell.
Yeah, I was like, I know I'm Michael Weber, but I can't tell you how or why that is. I just know. I've been
like
told I'm Michael Weber.
You're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's fucked up. So that's what she was like, and
okay, but she was, like grounded in reality. She knew where she was. She knew what day it was. That kind of thing, or no? You couldn't tell.
She was grounded in she sort of had like a thing playing in her head of like to keep herself like sane, of like she's like I have to wash the dishes, I have to wash, or something like that.
No,
like
that sounds a little
like I have to dry them. I don't think
there are similarities. Let's say. I mean, it's not that important. Bottom line is she was going through a thing.
She's going through a thing.
Yeah.
What was it like when you had it?
Psychosis.
Yeah.
Psychosis is more than mania. It's actually mania is like hyper and you're like on coke. I would say psychosis is like acid. If I'm like categorizing it. You know? Like manic is cocaine, right? Oh, you have all these amazing ideas and everything is so crystallized and crisp and incredible. And like, but I'm aware that I'm sitting here with you. And I'm aware that you're Michael and I'm here and we're present. And it's like, Michael, but you understand, like, the world is an amazing thing. And what we could do with this podcast, like, we could take over and we could do all these things. And it's so obvious. It's so clear to me now. But I'm aware of reality. You go a little too far down that road and then you're just like, you lose your sense of who you are and reality.
Wait, go down which road?
Like if you stay, I mean, manic, the stages of sort of mental health, on the bottom is like deep, dark depression, sort of normal, maybe in feeling shitty, somewhat shitty, normal, good mood, great mood, hypomanic, manic, totally manic, psychotic. Once you go psychotic, you are like John Nash in A Beautiful Mind, without the hallucinations, but with the delusions. So the delusions are the thoughts.
Got it.
So your thoughts that ground you, like knowing where you are and projecting things onto the future, like your whole grasp on reality is gone.
The way
it feels like a nightmare.
The way you explained it to me, which I thought was really good, was like a month into COVID. You said, imagine someone called you up yesterday and was like, "Where the fuck have you been?" And you're like, "What do you mean? We're on lockdown. There's a pandemic." And they're like, "No, dude, there's no pandemic. There's no lockdown."
It's all very real to you.
That's how real it feels while you're going through it.
I'm telling you, I was okay, but when COVID was going down and it was so weird and disorienting and it felt so unusual, I had a drive with myself where I went.
So what'd you do?
I didn't know. What was I supposed to do?
Well, did you like?
I checked in with
someone?
I checked in with Razi. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know how to ask you this question, but this is happening, right?
Yeah. Did she mess with you?
What?
Did she mess with you?
No. It was a serious question.
Yeah.
I was like, she's like, what do you mean? What? You all right? I'm like, I am. It's just a little crazy. And for someone who's been crazy, it's even crazier.
Yeah.
If you could imagine how disoriented you feel, just imagine how eerily familiar this feels. But just a little too familiar. It's like felt relapsey. I'm like, exactly what you just described.
The president's on TV talking about it.
The president's Donald Trump. What the fuck? He's saying the president's Donald Trump. He thinks we're on lockdown. He says there's a virus from China. He's crazy. So imagine if I told you, Michael, none of that happened.
Right.
You've been out of it for a couple of
for 2 years. There's no
years.
suspicion while it's happening that it's all happening in your head. Or as much as there ever is.
The weird thing is I remember it all. So that's what's a little bit
What did you think
frightening.
was happening?
All of it.
No, what was the delusion?
You get paranoid delusions. You think people
Yeah.
are trying to kill you. You think people have killed your family and friends, and it gets wacky. Maybe it's for another episode. We could go into it, but it's so spooky. But you know what it feels like? I can get into the details, but
Like,
what it
yeah.
feels like is you ever wake up from a terrible nightmare
Yeah.
that you remember for the first like hour of the day or
Yeah.
15 minutes or 10 seconds after waking up, and you're like, that was so real. And then you try to explain it, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "What? That makes no sense."
Ah.
And you're like, "Yeah, but." So all your thoughts in the nightmare, because then I was there, and then that person was, so it's more sequential because you're awake, but
Yeah.
it feels like a nightmare that while you're awake.
Right.
So like a bad acid trip where everyone's like, so you start like making these weird connections to things. So you
Mhm.
walk down and a car drives by you, and you're like, and you think the car was actually pointing, and the car's light points at a tree, and you look at the tree, and everything starts to have meaning in
Yeah.
the wrong ways.
But normally you
It's also
you
question
question your own
it's
thoughts. Why don't you just question your own thoughts while you're doing it?
remember Carrie in
Homeland?
Homeland?
Yeah.
Remember what was happening to her when she went
Homeland Runner?
psycho?
Yeah.
So first she was like coherent, but then it went too far.
But when it goes too far,
Yeah.
why do you lose the ability to question yourself? Why are you so convinced that all your thoughts are trustworthy?
Why are you so convinced now?
I'm not like I
So,
mean
that's all it
like I
is.
stop at a red light and I go
Yeah.
it's a red light,
Yeah.
but I don't like no I'm saying now I do question my own thoughts, like during the pandemic you were
Right.
like, is this really happening?
Right.
Let me why during the break do you not go, wait, did someone kill my parents? Why are you so like,
Yeah, you're
just
not
because I
able-
had that feeling I know it's true?
I think it's because you're not able. I think you're past that point of being able to do that.
Okay.
Meaning, what you do lose, the first thing to go is the person who goes, hey. This sounds a little crazy.
That's the manic part of
No,
like,
that person's gone now.
Right.
Like that self
yeah.
is now one and the same with the person experiencing the psychosis. Like tell the guy on the acid trip, dude, check yourself a little bit. He can't because
No, but you can, I mean you can though.
when you're on acid,
Yeah.
you can ground yourself.
Yeah.
All right, I haven't been on
Yeah.
acid, but I've heard experiences of bad trips where that person can wait out because that person can remember taking acid, right? And then like following that thread and saying, okay, I know I'll come down, right? But what if you didn't take acid? What if you just started going? Maybe it would be scarier.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a good comparison because I think it's something that interests me of like despite
I'm
everything
drawing
that's going on-
parallels. I haven't taken
Yeah.
acid and been psychotic.
Yeah,
I've only done one.
Yeah, yes. So maybe that's the difference where you.
So I think with
do
acid you
lose
can
that self.
maintain that you can maintain yourself in it through it.
Yeah.
So with
there's-
this one,
yeah.
you can't.
Right.
You go.
That's interesting.
And then everything you see, it's like when you see something and you process it with your thoughts, you like trust that whatever you're receiving signals wise is kind of painting some kind of accurate picture of reality.
Mhm.
So what happens in this case is the picture is distorted. So you don't have anything else. Those are your faculties. John Nash. Remember John Nash?
Yeah.
So in the scene in A Beautiful Mind where it's all coming undone, he just freaks out because everything he's built his reality upon up until that point isn't there. And you believed it as an audience. So you were like, what's wrong with everybody else? Then you see him in like the hospital and he's been like strapped down and all that stuff. And it's like all of a sudden it comes undone. He has the break and whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then Carrie Underwood, when she goes off the med, is it Underwood?
I think it's Underwood.
Is it?
No, it's
Frank
Carrie,
Underwood and Carrie
Matheson.
Yes. So
Is that
she eventually goes off the meds to try to like up her cognitive function and say like I can see that, but then she starts to see things that aren't there. But she can't just say she can't at that point. She can't like call herself back. She's gone too
Yeah,
far.
see, that's pretty
She's
scary.
too far out to see. Like whatever you're processing is one and the same, and it's now distorted.
Yeah.
So now you think something is real, and it has to be real because like you saw it or felt it. or
Do you
whatever.
think there's anything? Do you think it's possible you've responded to that terrifying state by now being hyper questioning and like hyper reasonable?
No.
where
In what
like,
sense? Go on.
where like
do better. Say better.
It's so scary to be in a place where you can't question your own thoughts, that you need to now constantly be running through the rational arguments for why you're thinking something in order to remind yourself that you're not having a break.
Right.
Or like
No,
or maybe let me put it differently. It's so it's embarrassing almost to have people see you like that you want to identify as someone who's the opposite of that. As someone who's not crazy. As someone who's not in any sort of state that's unreasonable.
Let me think for a second. It's a good question. As a way to protect myself and my image and my identity, I now have to like go the opposite and be super rational
internally, because I don't think anyone cares besides you.
Yeah.
But like it's shameful. Like I've done things I'm ashamed of, so like I compensate.
It's a loaded question. It's a
It
very
is a
loaded question.
loaded question.
I think a couple of things happened in the immediate aftermath of that, which
Yeah.
was anything fluffy.
Yeah.
I really disregarded. It had very little utility and value to me.
Were you scared of it?
Yeah, it made me lose my mind.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, when you're religious and spiritual, there are a lot of things, it lends credibility to a lot of things that don't make that much sense, respectfully. So you can believe all these crazy things because you don't believe necessarily just what's in front of you.
Mhm.
And that's why you see a lot of these. You've been to like, Hasidic scenes where you see people who are psychotic or manic.
Remember that guy?
Revolution. No.
No, who was smoking? He's like, on Yom Kippur, yeah, your mom find out if you live or die.
Yeah, that was good. He was fun, but that was hilarious. Hey, it makes you nervous. You don't know if you're going to live or die. Oh, of course, I remember that. But, there have been writings about people. I think Elie Wiesel used to say that a lot of Hasidic Rebbe's, Razi learned about it in college, were like known to be manic and had bipolar disorder and a lot of those things. And you could tell by their writings. When I see a lot of that. So did it introduce a skepticism? You could call it skepticism, or maybe I know what this is. Almost that it wasn't skepticism. It was more like when I see erratic kind of behavior or behavior that's sort of familiar to me,
Mm-hmm.
I almost felt like it sort of pulled the curtain out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So to people like you would say, you're so skeptical, you're so this. I'm like, yeah, but I also think some of it gets confused. When people see Kanye West and they're like, man, he's wise, man. He sees things we don't see.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's sick.
Right, yeah.
Kanye West is having a manic episode and we're all watching it. And some people are fetishizing it. And I'm really disturbed by that.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean he's not a genius or creative or incredible at what he does.
Yeah.
But the thing it doesn't mean that he also isn't sick and they go one and the same.
Right.
Sometimes it's a badge of honor. There was a part of me that's like, hey, look, maybe that took a long time. This is what you get when you're a genius.
Yeah.
No, you get this kind of thing.
See,
and you get this kind of thing where like, when you get into these like bursts of creativity, like I would feel it over the years. But to answer your question, yes, there's a part of it that in the aftermath, the years afterwards, I just kind of said, I have no patience or time for that stuff.
Yeah.
Certainly no substances or anything that's going to try to bring me back to something remotely similar to this. Like, forget it. So I just said, I'm not touching that. I would drink a little here and there,
I had the same thing when I started treating my OCD. So I understand that.
So I was like, I'm not going to touch that stuff. There's just no way.
Yeah.
I'm the candidate that says, unless you have some serious mental health or experiences, don't do it. But otherwise, mushrooms are safe. I'm like, okay, I'm the guy it's not safe for. Don't do it. I'm not tweaking out again. The other thing is, I was like, I became very cynical about the spiritual side of life, the fluffy side of life. I didn't look past somebody talking a bunch of things. I'm like, there's nothing more meaningful there. There's nothing more there when somebody's talking about, stuff they can't possibly know about.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, I've come back around to it.
Yeah.
Through like Jordan Peterson and those kind of things that we've spoken about. But I've come around. That's taken a long time.
Yeah.
But for a long time, a lot of that type of thinking was bundled up in what eventually led to a very, very awful experience. Right. And when you are religiously inclined, like you can think and believe all sorts of things So that would make more sense if I actually explained, like, believing you're the Messiah and you're going to save the world. Delusions of grandeur, like, people have that and they think, and it's a common thing. But for religiously inclined people, there's no reason why it shouldn't make perfect sense. So when you're getting a distorted view of reality, the religious mind and part of your brain tries to clarify that by saying it's not distorted. This is what the messianic world looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why that's really dangerous territory to like go into.
Mm-hmm.
So to not take it too seriously or not let it get too deep, I definitely walled it off for a few years to either recuperate. Or make sense of what the hell that was.
But even now, do you think part of your attraction to someone like Ben Shapiro is that you like being identified with someone who's hyper logical?
No, because Ben Shapiro stylistically is in a way off-putting to someone like me, because I'm creative and I'm not a stiff.
Right, but
I'm not all like, well, the Beatles couldn't read music, so forget them. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like he did a whole funny rant about how the Beatles aren't real magicians because they can't read music. That's not my style. I just think he's right intellectually about a lot of things.
Right.
But on style, he's got to relax a little bit. Mm-hmm. Life is more complicated. Life is all these things, and like he's consistently conservative in every way. Mm-hmm. Like personality conservative. I don't think I have a conservative personality per se.
Right, but
I just agree with a lot of.
Do you like feeling identified with the consistency? For as someone who had like a traumatic inconsistency, to feel represented by someone who's very, very consistent.
I didn't find like savior and solace in solace a word.
Solace.
Okay, sorry.
You do read.
I didn't find that as like my savior. I came to that stuff later as just being intellectually curious, and I found that stuff really appealing because it seemed very right and resonant.
Okay,
but not
certainly right.
I'm saying the arguments themselves are very, very well made, and I think I've yet to
do with.
But I don't think it has to do with that, because to me, I guess I can't. I don't know if there's really a tie-in other than I've always appreciated Rabbi Jonathan Sacks' approach to Judaism and ideas that and like reason and rationality fused with depth and spiritual matters, as opposed to people just saying things and people like infusing feeling into them because that's what they need in the moment. I become more sympathetic to that and more broad a little bit, but in general, that stuff resonated and spoke to me. Maybe it did some psychological. Maybe you can like read into it that it appeals to me for certain reasons. It helps to ground me, but I'm not trying to like actively identify with that for strategic reasons.
No, not actively. It would be more subconscious.
Well, I couldn't answer that if it's subconscious, I guess.
True, but you could grow aware of it.
Yeah, I think that's stuff I'm intellectually curious about, and that's the stuff that speaks to me, and it's exactly like, and I had my dad's influence too on a lot of things, so he sort of got to me at that age when you have a lot of questions about politics. And oftentimes at like 25, if you start reading Marx first, that'll like solidify for a few years and have to come either undone or be solidified. But if you have questions and then people give you answers, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So oftentimes things get your confirmation biases get set in stone then. And I don't think there's necessarily a tie-in to the mental health. But religiously, there's a tie-in for sure, where things got a lot more dry. And I'm just like, look, I don't know what I can say about all of that shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But man, it's quite something. It makes life interesting, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
That was living. But I will say, that the stuff that you went through recently and the stuff I've been through and all this stuff, I wonder if we're at the age now where we can properly say, like, real life is happening. Like, real things.
Yeah.
I guess it's always real things. But, like, we're at this age now where, like, pain, like, real things happen on a more regular basis than I don't know. Like, are we allowed to finally say, like, okay, this is life. This is real shit. You know what I'm saying? For years, we're always like, I wonder, when will we look back on, every decade you look back on the previous one and say that was nothing compared to this.
Yeah.
This is like, okay, now real stuff is happening. Now people are getting like illnesses and losses and struggle and things like that you're dealing with or contending with. Like, at what point does it go the other way? Right? It doesn't get easier.
Probably when it
My back hurts.
When it starts. Yeah.
It hurts
my
a
back
lot.
Is killing
It
me.
hurts a lot.
I couldn't walk
all the
last
time.
night.
I gotta go see somebody. But I just wonder because like you hear these things and yeah. Rosie and I were once talking about a friend who lost somebody at like the age that we're at, like a parent, the age that we're at. And I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's just I've been thinking about some of the heavy stuff recently for whatever reason. But
yeah, the heavy stuff. What maybe this is what religion gives to me also, but like if you want to like people always want to like be better or like deeper or kinder or more generous.
Yeah,
I find it's very or like I mean everyone says they want to be better.
Yeah.
Like I find it very difficult to improve, and like it's mostly things like this that make you a deeper person. Like
trials and tribulations.
Yeah, and when you come out of the other side, you are kinder and you are deeper and you are more generous.
I think because the experiences are so genuine that they undeniably have a genuine effect.
There's that, and I think you need to cultivate some of those characteristics to get through it
for sure.
And also or your other people display it to you in such a genuine way that you're moved by it, and you're like you're changed by it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you keep like
that wears off
that sort of when you keep that sort of attitude, like the attitude that makes this feel like, oh, this is real life, that's when it got serious or bad. Is like I feel like that's like getting old, where it's just like shit happens and like you just do it. But like if you have the mindset of like it's like all these are opportunities to like,
I'm not even being negative. Yeah. What I was saying was, for a long time you get this narrative thrown at you. Just wait. You're complaining now. You're stressed in college.
Right.
Just you wait. Things gets a lot tougher. I'm like, have we arrived? That was all I was saying. Because like, especially once you have kids and you're looking at stuff that, you can imagine these, like, the one real plague of children is, it's like you're now so vulnerable to, their well-being is so vital to your well-being because the thought of anything bad is so much more elevated now. You're on that plane. So you think about that, but I'm just like, I that was the only thing I was asking, sort of in a light way, but also an intense way.
Yeah.
Are we there? Because I even like when my parents hear about like things happening to friends of mine, it freaks them out. They're like, oh my goodness, is he that age already where the real stuff happens? So I don't know. People, I've said, just wait till you're in your mid 40s, man,
right.
And parents and aging parents. Like I have friends in their 40s and they're like, nothing like an aging parent. Trust me, it's a different thing. Which
I'm not looking forward to thinking about that.
I just And on that note, we can end on something lighter, just to wrap up at the most depressing episode of Buckle.
You had a good week.
Oh yeah.
No details, but you got a book.
So last week, while you were dealing with all this, I was on the content lighter side of things, which is all meaningless. Yeah. Well, while you're going through stuff.
Yeah, Ami called me up in the supermarket. He's like, "We got a lot to discuss this week." I'm like, "Oh, about like the baby stuff." He's like, "No, Trump was on the Milk Boys." I was like,
no,
I missed that.
I said, no, we're not going to discuss personal stuff. Don't be silly.
No, but it's funny.
I just want to say, Michael, by the way, while you're in real life, in fake life, there's some crazy stuff happening.
That's how it felt.
Right. Which is true.
Which is such an amazing blessing, by the way.
To be removed.
Yeah. Like, it's so nice. I've like so many podcast episodes I just like marked as played, and I'm like, never gonna listen to that. Yeah. Not gonna try to catch up. Just done.
Yeah, all of that, all the noise just goes.
It's you know what?
And all you hear is.
It's the antidote to content addiction, is what it is.
Having a baby.
Having something.
All these teens. That's what they should do.
Intense in your life.
Yes.
Even an intense project. Even if you were recording an album over 2 weeks, you would be done. You would you don't want that noise in your head.
Right. You know what's funny? It's like, whenever you get like real sick with like a stomach bug or something that just knocks you out cold, everything else just becomes numb. You don't hear it. You're just like, I got to get better.
Yeah.
your body responds by saying nothing else matters. It does, where you're in bed and you're like, I don't care. I just, that impulse, I don't care. I don't want to do anything. I just want to get better.
Yeah.
So these comparable experiences, not the same thing, but the level of just singular focus.
Yeah. I love it.
It's nice.
And
it lasts a week or two, and then you're getting back.
That's why I like filmmaking also. I mean, I had one opportunity to make a film, and it's like just head down for like, for 18-hour days for like a week. I love that.
That's nice. The problem with being a content creator is you're like in the drug you want to get off of. You're like you're now a dealer. Like when I'm hyper focused on making these videos, but that draws me into this
right
the world that can drain you.
Right.
But on that, last week in the content world was crazy because I spoke about it on the solo cast.
Right.
But trumping on the Nelpo, it's like the beginning of the week started, I think it was like Mr. Beast is on Joe Rogan. So now you have two legacy medias, one slightly older than the other, recognizing each other. And that's wild. Like, imagine telling someone, what do you do for work? He's like, I'm a content creator. It's like you could start to say that now and it's palatable. Because like these guys, these kids are businessmen and entrepreneurs and creating empires. It's wild. So I saw that, and then when I see the Nelk Boys saying we broke the internet today, I'm like, what's this about? And then you're watching this hour-long interview with Trump, who hasn't been on the public stage since he got banned from Twitter, just saying all this, like candy for him. I could say everything I wanted to say. Like, but you're also it was just a reminder that the internet rules the day. It's where the attention is. They're on this show. Like Donald Trump, the former president, is on this show with a bunch of former pranksters who made funny videos, and legacy media, forget it. They're going to have to like just take bits of this and talk about it. Yeah. So that was striking. And then in my own personal world, Gary Vee shared a bunch of videos, which were fun. And that was a nice thing. We speak about that all the time when you get these like moments of virality or recognition and what that does. And it feels good for a nice moment. You savor that moment and you move on, you keep going. Yeah. But for that to all happening in the span of a week was interesting. And what happened with you was way more important.
But you were going to tell me about, I don't know, can you talk about it, that you got booked for a job? Not
yes.
thing, but a stand-up gig or something?
Well, so I am going to be doing, that's what I did want to talk about.
Yeah, in Minneapolis.
So I did get booked. It's still fresh. We'll see if it's happening. Somebody reached out about hiring me to do some Gary Vee stuff, which is cool because it's a real gig. It's a paid gig. And it just shows like you put in the work and you seed the territory and then it starts to blossom.
If someone sends you on a plane, it's real.
Yeah, it's real. The other thing I wanted to say was that, like, we talk about techniques and things that we can do to spark creative endeavors and actually have them begin. Because everyone talks about, here's what you got to do this. Start this, do that. But there's a step beneath that needs to happen first. And that's why a lot of people never start, because they're like, I should do this, I should do that. How do you go from should to actually doing? So the things that I do and the writing down lists and doing affirmations and all these things that you may doubt, I start to just see things that happen. Maybe it's a correlation, but it's like interesting to start to see, wow, look what's happening. Like I booked 2 sets that I'm going to be doing at the end of this month at Stand Up New York, stand up. And I have written next to me, stand up. Like I have it, do it, write every day. Like I have those things that have been around me. Yeah. And I've been doing affirmations that relate to those things.
I wanted to ask you about affirmations. I'm actually was happy you brought it up in the solo cast because I wanted to. I don't know if
best episode by the way. I think people are going crazy.
I mean, we got like I think it's at 1 million views now.
that would have been so bizarre. I would have loved it.
So funny.
Yeah. So
affirmations. I don't know. I imagine you don't want to say your actual affirmation out loud. What's an example of an affirmation?
An example of an affirmation would be either writing down or saying. People have different versions of it. Yeah. Some people say it in weird ways. It's like prayer in a way. It functions a similar way. But you say something to the effect of, what would you want? You want to, I, Michael Weber, will write a full-length screenplay. Or
today, or
like I will do that by the end of this year. I will. You can add timestamps, like you can add time limitations to it. But let's say you say I Michael Weber will write on a series television show by the end of this year, or I will, whatever you want, and then you affirm that it will happen.
Got it.
And you say it to yourself. I, Michael Weber, will I don't know. We'll start We'll grow a podcast to such an. You don't want to put numbers or dates on it because then if it doesn't hit that, you kind of feel like. But people do, and some people swear by it.
And how
by the end of
often do
this
you do
year,
it?
I will have a successful podcast that's fan funded.
And
Ami Koza will have that. Michael Weber.
is there a time limit, or like did you say it for 10 minutes
15
straight?
times.
Did 15 times?
This is the Scott Adams Affirmations school book.
Oh right,
He has a chapter
now.
on affirmations. He says, "Look, don't take my word for it. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just saying I did it, and this is what
I
happened."
remember he gave the story of like he said, "I will meet so and so actress
Yeah.
by the end of this year," and he like ran into her.
Now he claims that. Well, he explains that what could be happening is as you say these things every single day, you start to subconsciously operate to make them happen.
Right.
Either way. I just figure if it couldn't hurt,
Yeah.
you know, people do it with money. They do it with opportunities. I will have this. I will become. I will do this. Some people write goals as if they're in the moment. They do it in the present tense. Yeah. I am this.
Mm-hmm.
I will not. Money will not concern me. Like people do all sorts of things. But he said he had a formula, which is 15 times writing down or saying it to yourself. Scott Adams' affirmation was, "I will become a world famous cartoonist. Scott Adams, will become a world famous cartoonist." And he would say that 15 times a day for 3-4 years. Became a world famous cartoonist. That is episode 22.
22.
Michael Weber and Ami Kozak will have the biggest podcast in Teaneck. We will have a successful podcast. Fan funded on Patreon. Let's figure that shit out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, you know what I was thinking while you were talking?
You're usually thinking while I'm talking.
What if at some point we what's the right word? We codified some of the steps we talk about and like made sort of like a step-by-step guide for how to get a project off the ground.
I think we need a little street cred. We have some, but maybe down the road it's something.
Yeah, down the road.
And then at the end of the podcast, if you like this episode, please click the link below to subscribe for our course on how to do the things that we do.
Yeah, exactly. Get the PDF, get the book.
I like that, but I don't want to help other people.
Right, because then we're creating our own competition.
I want to help us.
What if we did
the virtue of selfishness?
What if we misled people?
That is more interesting.
So then we're leading competition away.
we just say, here's what you don't write anything down. Yeah. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
Just
believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Don't believe the haters.
Don't believe the haters. Fuck the haters and click the link below to buy my course. Episode 22. Mazel Tov.
Hey,
Poppy Mikey, number 2. Happy and healthy. Simon Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simon.